Resident Evil 4 Remake has been out for about a week now, and let me just say, I am absolutely loving that game. I've done about 5 playthroughs of the game so far. However, despite my sheer love for the game, it's hard to ignore the fact that there are just a few things missing from the game that I really hope get added soon. One of the things we'll be talking about is actually confirmed to be getting added within the next week. So let's not waste any time, let's dive into it. The first thing that is missing from RE4 Remake, but is confirmed to be coming to the game on April 7th, that is the Mercenaries mode. Right now we're playing on PS4, and I honestly haven't played Mercenaries yet on PS4. I have all of the characters unlocked back on the PS2 version. However, I didn't want to make you guys watch 480p footage, so we're going to be playing on the PS4. Mercenaries, for those of you that don't know, I really don't know the best way to explain it. It's kind of like COD Zombies with a timer, except every kill that you get, like, you're chaining together kills for a score. You'll see how it works when we get into it. Eliminate as many Ganados as you can before your evac chopper arrives. Successive kills will result in earning you more points, unlock a new character with a 4-star rating, so the higher score you get, you know, oh gosh, okay, yeah. Playing the RE4 Remake is throwing me off a bit. I gotta get readjusted to the controls here. I have quite the masochistic control setup going for my settings of RE4, okay? For whenever I aim, I actually use the same stick that I use to move, considering the fact that when you're aiming, you're not able to move anyway, so I usually just find it easier so then I don't have to take my finger off of that stick. However, like I said, I have been playing RE4 Remake and basically only RE4 Remake for the last week, so this is definitely gonna take me a minute to get adjusted to again. I don't know, there's just something about the original Resident Evil 4. It feels wrong to aim with the right stick. But yeah, this is basically the core loop of Mercenaries. You get in, you try to chain together as many kills as you can. My face cam is kind of blocking it right now, but once you start getting kills chained together, as you can see at the top, 3 in a row, you just try to chain together as many as you can. The more kills you get, the more score you get, and I just got absolutely annihilated by the giant chainsaw man. It's a pretty simple mode, but it's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's already been confirmed to be coming to the Resident Evil 4 Remake, so it's not a big deal that it's missing. The next one I wanted to talk about here, Assignment Ada. This is one where if it doesn't come back to Resident Evil 4 Remake, I wouldn't necessarily be sad. However, considering that it already was in the original, it would be nice to see it come back in some form or fashion. So as you can see here, we got Ada in a very different attire from what we're used to seeing her in. Mission objective, collect 5 Plaga samples and head towards the rendezvous point. So this is basically what you can expect from Assignment Ada. It's kind of like a second mini campaign for Ada, not really. You just kind of go into certain levels throughout the main game. Then you have like an objective you can do, like collecting 5 Plaga samples. Again, it was a much smaller mode, and I honestly don't have as much experience with it. I played through it like once or twice back in the day, but I never played it a lot, not as much as I did with the main game or separate ways. It's crazy just how intuitive Resident Evil 4 is. Even though I've been playing the remake for the last week, like as soon as I got back on the game, the controls, the movement, like it's all just coming right back to me. I mean, that is kind of to be expected considering that this is my favorite game of all time and one of my most played games of all time. Still, man, even almost 20 years later, this game is just, it's so intuitive. It feels so good to play. Now, granted, even though this is technically like a remastered version of the game on PS4 at 1080p, even despite that, just look at the game, like textures-wise, it holds up surprisingly well. I mean, sure, there's a few muddy textures here and there, but for the most part, it still looks incredible. Anyways, again, this is a mode that's technically missing from RE4 Remake. However, if it doesn't make a comeback, no, I wouldn't be necessarily sad about it. However, I would still like to see it make a comeback in some form or fashion. Now that leaves us with the final thing that is missing from RE4 Remake, that being Separate Ways. Separate Ways is essentially the main campaign of RE4 from Ada's perspective. This just shows everything she was doing from the game, and it's actually a complete campaign. It has its own cutscenes, files, weapons. It even has a few areas that are exclusive to the Separate Ways mode that aren't accessible in the normal game of RE4. Think like the ship chapter from later in the game. Another thing worth noting is that some of Ada's variants of the weapons that she has are actually kind of like upgraded in a sense compared to what you would normally see in the main campaign of RE4, like the Blacktail, for example. As you can see, when we reload it, we have 21 bullets in the mag. It fires a lot faster than it normally would. It has a bit more damage than usual. Then if you come up here and look at the iconic shotgun, it has a cool little bit of text here. A shotgun. I'd better leave this for Leon. I thought that that was such a cool touch when I saw that for the first time back in the day. I don't know, man. Now that I'm playing it more, maybe I would be better off switching my aim over to the other stick. I've played this game like this for the longest time, but now that I'm revisiting it, man, I don't know. For me, I'm still just not used to playing this game with like modern control schemes where you aim with the left trigger and shoot with the right. Most of the time when I replay this game, I play it on the PS2, so I'm aiming with R1, and then I aim with the left stick, shoot with X. The one thing about Separate Ways, though, that doesn't hold up, no matter what version of the game that you're playing, as you can see, you have these pre-rendered cutscenes that are running at a smooth 480p. There was so much attention to detail in this game. If you look very closely at the shrubs off in the distance, they're like swaying with the wind. And mind you, again, this is a game from 2005 on the PS2 and the GameCube. There was so much love and care and polish put into this game. There was just very few flaws to be found here. It is just, I love this game to death. it's still my favorite of all time. And it's so crazy for me to say this, but the remake honestly is tied with this original as being my favorite game of all time. So technically they're both kind of my favorite game of all time, even though they're technically the same game in a way. Not really, because the remake changed a lot, so I don't know. Regardless, whether it counts as one game or two games, they're both like tied for me. They're both amazing. Another thing I wanted to touch on in this video, aside from the, you know, quote-unquote missing features, is a few things that have been rumored or speculated about that could be coming to the RE4 remake but aren't confirmed in any capacity yet. So obviously, as you'd expect, there's been a lot of rumors about a potential Separate Ways DLC coming to the game, which I hope is the case, and also the fact that it could be releasing for free. Furthermore, there's also been rumors about a potential Operation Javier DLC that I guess would be played from the perspective of Krauser during the events of Operation Javier that he talked about during the game. Let me just say, I love the fact that they expanded on Krauser's lore and story and in the files and such. It really gives you a much better look into Krauser as a character, his story, why he is the way that he is, and it honestly kind of makes you feel for the guy. Now, the second rumor, which I found to be very interesting, is the idea of a second Separate Ways DLC, except instead of being the usual Separate Ways we'd expect with Ada, on top of that, there would also be another Separate Ways mode or DLC where you'd be playing as Lewis and seeing things from his perspective of the game, which I think would actually be pretty cool, considering the fact that even though Lewis is in Resident Evil 4 Remake a lot, he is off camera for a good portion of the game, and furthermore, they've given him a lot more backstory now and made his character a bit deeper. So there's a lot they could do with that. They could not only show what he was doing during the times that he was off camera during the main campaign of RE4 Remake, but they could also show what happened before the campaign of RE4 Remake when he was still working for the Los Illuminados. Maybe it could give us a behind the scenes look into the experiments that Los Illuminados was doing. Maybe we could even see Sadler before he became a deformed maniac. Going back to the Separate Ways campaign that would feature Ada, there's been people saying that since U3 was cut from the base game of RE4, that fight could possibly make a return in Ada's Separate Ways mode. I'm not exactly sure how likely that would be, but I think that would be pretty cool considering, again, it was cut from the main game. And even though, if I'm going to be honest, U3 was kind of my least favorite fight from the original Resident Evil 4, I still feel like it would be cool if they could include it and pay a little homage to it. I'm going to be honest, out of all the puzzles in Resident Evil 4, this is the one that I still get stuck on to this day. I never memorized the solution to it, so I'm just kind of stuck here hitting all these random buttons till I end up finding out the solution. One last thing that is missing from the RE4 remake that I really hope they bring back in some form or fashion with the DLCs, the PRL 412. The way you unlock this back in the original Resident Evil 4 was to beat the game on Professional, and once you do that, you can unlock the PRL 412 for free in your next playthrough. And unfortunately, when I beat RE4 remake on Professional, you know, I went to the merchant, I was really excited, I was hoping the PRL would be there, but unfortunately it wasn't. So my fingers are crossed, and I'm praying that they bring it back in the DLC somehow. That weapon was so cool back in the day. Like, even if I tried to explain it, it wouldn't do it any justice. Just do yourself a favor, look up Resident Evil 4 PRL 412 versus all bosses or something like that, and you'll see how ridiculous it is. Especially in the village section, you just do one charge shot and you immediately wipe out everybody in the village and clear out the village section in like less than 30 seconds. It was honestly such an insane weapon, so I really hope we can see it return. Anyways, that's all I got. Those are just a few things that I feel like are still missing from the RE4 remake that I really would like to see come back into the game, but even if they don't, it's not a deal breaker for me. Like, RE4 remake as it stands now, even if Mercenaries wasn't getting added in a couple days, it would still be tied with the original as my favorite game of all time. It's absolutely phenomenal. And with the amount of content that has been added already and all the different challenges and all the other stuff you could do, like, it more than makes up for any content that is quote-unquote missing or was replaced or whatever. Now I definitely want to hear from you guys. Is there anything that you feel is missing from the original Resident Evil 4 in this remake that you would like to see re-added? Do you have any of your own speculations / theories on things that could be coming to the game or new additions that weren't in the original Resident Evil 4 that could be added with DLC down the line? Whatever it is and whatever you're thinking, I'd love to hear from you guys. But anyway, as always, a shout out to the patrons and channel members: Karma's Favorite Grandma, Little Booty Tab, Big Dead, Maddie, Chalupasaurus, for X-Ray, Zach Polar, Ray, Webster, Lamas, Bianca, Spurgatory, Drippy Son, Mellow Lasking, Computer Imagine Center, Ring Teacher, Y15, Flimmy 71, Aaron Reynolds, and Unknown. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day. Stay beautiful. I love you all. And remember, don't go hollow. Peace.